VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. This is the Dalton Risner episode. Hopefully it's the first of many in a good way. After 7 weeks of you guys and gals asking for this damn team to sign Dalton Risner, they did it. Seemingly out of nowhere. The Vikings met with Dalton Risner on August 1st in Eagan about a free agent relationship. Nothing took shape. It was just kind of like, all right, cool, we met with you. We're going with Ed Ingram and Ezra Cleveland, and that's that through 2 games of the 2023 season. Guess what? The Vikings are 0-2, and they probably, arguably, need a little bit more beef on the offensive line. Shocking that you would hear that on a Vikings podcast or show like this, that the Vikings' interior offensive line is a struggle merchant. But here we are. So the Vikings went out and got, alas, Dalton Risner for 1 year on a deal expandable up to $4 million. And I'll tell you, before I say anything else, that $4 million for an offensive guard 3 weeks into the season feels like starters' money. Otherwise, what are we doing? So I would expect to see plenty of Risner. I don't know if it'll be this soon as Sunday, hopefully, maybe. But I want to discuss where this man fits on the Vikings offense, because the reality is, before we jump into anything, the Vikings employ 2 starting left guards in Ezra Cleveland and Dalton Risner. So let's jump into it and chat. Foremost, we'll talk to Josh Fry tomorrow about this upcoming Chargers game that's almost guaranteed to get really crazy and funky because it is the Vikings and Chargers, and their DNA suggests things gotta be weird, especially in the fourth quarter and or overtime. So where the hell does Dalton Risner fit with these 2023 Vikings? They probably should have signed him on August 1st, and that way he had a month to get his footing underneath him, but nope, can't have nice things until, your back's against the wall. So the first most sensible theory here is that Dalton Risner, right out of the gate, whether that's week 3 or week 4, he is going to start at right guard instead of Ed Ingram. That is probably, if there was, betting odds on this, that would probably be the favorite. Why? Well, Ed Ingram, through 19 career games, has had more problems than, prosperity, especially forcing a fumble against his own quarterback and then stepping on Kirk Cousins' feet once or twice last year. On my other show with Bryant McKinney, was it last week, we told him about that, and he was just, it was mind-boggling to him that an offensive lineman would not have the awareness to avoid those flubs, self-induced treachery that has beset Ingram. Now, if Ingram does not work out, that will really suck in hindsight and really make Kwesi's first draft, the 2022 version, look continually awful. It's not looking good yet, although these guys, Andrew Booth, Lewis Cine, Ed Ingram, Brian Asamoah, Caleb Evans, Ty Chandler, those dudes, it's only 19 games into their career. Any one of them can still turn it around. But you should circle this as the leading idea that Ed Ingram will soon go to the bench, and at right guard, Dalton Risner will slide right in there, and it'll be hunky-dory. The only catch here, and we're going to get into this in just a second, is that Risner with the Broncos usually played left guard, and it's up to you, which articles you read or which style of football you subscribe to when you're watching film. There's some folks that claim that, it's relatively seamless to switch from left to right guard. The Mike Zimmer Vikings had no problem switching players out of position. And there's some that say, what are we doing? It's like playing with your left hand. So it's up to you to decide that. I still believe that Risner will probably just be the right guard. And then who knows? Because Ed Ingram is still under contract for 2 more years after this. And I don't know if they would cut bait with him next year or just hope that he progresses. So the most sensible theory is that Ed Ingram, sooner or later, probably sooner, will head to the bench, and Dalton Risner will be your starting right guard for the Minnesota Vikings. The next one is that he could be the left guard with a shift. What does that mean? Well, Ezra Cleveland showed the versatility right out of the draft to, the Vikings said, oh, hey, Boise State tackle, cool, let's put you at guard. And for the most part, it's worked. Cleveland's pretty trustable, and up until now, and probably or perhaps even going forward, Cleveland has played left guard. Now, because he's versatile, there is a chance, this is the second theory, that they swing him over to Ingram's spot, put Ingram on the bench, and let Risner cook at left guard, which is what he played for most of his, if not all, of his Broncos career. So yeah, it would be tapping into a versatile asset in Cleveland who's under contract for the rest of this year, and then who knows, saying, hey, pal, we know what we did with you a couple years ago from tackle to guard. We're going to move you one more time. We're putting your ass at right guard because this new guy only plays left guard. That would be the working theory for this second one here, is that we basically do a shift. Again, Ingram to the bench, Ezra Cleveland to right guard, and then Dalton Risner to left guard. That would be the other theory. The other one you're not going to like, but I could see it happening in a very, very extreme alternate universe, is that Risner was just signed for a rainy day. Don't forget Chris Reed is also on this team, and he's a pretty damn sturdy reservist guard, a lot of adjectives there. But at $4 million, it's probably more likely that Risner is going to play sooner than later. But there also is a chance that he needs time to acclimate to the offense, and it takes a while to get going, and therefore he just kind of lives on the bench until they realize once and for all, Ed Ingram isn't going to make the cut. Or if he has a shitty game against the Chargers, then you would have Risner with about 2 weeks under his belt in the building, so to speak, to get ready for the Panthers game on October 1st, which, if you care, incidentally, is my son's 7th birthday. We'll be watching that at the house here. Panthers, Vikings on October 1st. It better be a win. My God, if they don't win that one, oh boy, we're really going to get into the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. And then I've talked about this before on the show. And I may even mention a couple minutes ago, is that Ezra Cleveland, his rookie contract expires this season. He's got 15 games to go on paper as a Vikings guard, or what he is right now, a left guard. So there is a chance that they still believe in Ingram. I know you probably don't, but if you ask Ed Ingram, he says he's playing great. There's a chance that the Vikings aren't ready to give in on Ingram yet. And then they also may not retain Cleveland next March, which means Cleveland could sign anywhere in the NFL. But then you already have that relationship with Risner where he could either stay at left guard, revert to left guard, depending on what they do with this lineup, and then he just takes over for Cleveland. They did not extend Cleveland this offseason when it was kind of, this would be the time to do it. So I've said for a while, mostly before Ingram came out and struggled in the first 2 games, that if they signed Risner, that could be a plan for the afterlife of Cleveland, because Cleveland is not supposed to be on the team next year contractually unless they re-sign him at whatever his asking price may be. So there's always a chance that when you look up at this time next year, Risner's at left guard, they're still trying to rectify Ingram at right guard, and so forth. And this, what I'm going to leave you with here, and this is exciting, is this has a potential to be a new era for the Vikings. We hired this offense-first head coach, about 19, 20 months ago, and last year, in fairness to them, when Brian O'Neill went down or Christian Darrisaw went down, those positions, you didn't see a huge drop-off when Blake Brandel got in there or Oli Udoh. So kudos to them for being an offense-first organization that knew how to fix an offensive line ravaged by injuries. Still, though, the interior of the offensive line, highlighted by the next Netflix show with Kirk Cousins, is suspect. So this is one of the first real bona fide solutions we've had in a decade where it really feels like this thing will work, because Risner is no chump. The other thing about Risner, he's also not a Pro Bowler. He's not all pro. He's a good guard. He's not elite, so I want to pump the brakes there. But he shouldn't just allow huge dudes to penetrate the offensive line and smack Cousins around all the time, or at least to what we're used to, from Drew Samia, Dakota Dozier, Pat Elflein, the latest in Ed Ingram, at least through 19 career games. Signing Risner should excite you because it shows that they're getting serious once and for all for the first time in like a decade, I swear to God, at offensive guard, of fixing it. That's why everybody called for it for the last 7 weeks, is they wanted a commodity in Risner, whose resume suggests he's a better pass protector than a run blocker. We finally wanted that. We wanted to get with the times. If we're going to throw the ball as much as we do, like 77% of the time, you better have guards that can keep your quarterback upright. So unless Risner shows up in the next week, 2 or 3, and just utterly struggles, this feels like a dream come true that we've finally been heard that, all right, they've got a guard who's got a second-round draft stock. He was pretty darn good for the Broncos. He's not some moron that just knows how to run block and doesn't know how to pass block. He's the total package with even a tendency leaning heavy on the pass blocking. So you should rejoice that unless Risner has some itis or the Vikings have some itis that affects him, this is a good guard who protects quarterbacks, and he will play for your Minnesota Vikings before sooner or later. It could be a changing of the guard. We could be done with all of this really poor offensive guard play that I swear has beset the Vikings since Steve Hutchinson left over a decade ago. All right, tomorrow I'll be back with Josh Fry to talk about probably a little bit of Risner. I'll get his theory where he thinks Risner will essentially line up on the offensive line. And then we got to get into this Chargers week, one that's the game's going to be zany. I'm going to keep saying that it's going to be this funky because, you always hear the Chargers are charging. Or in big Vikings moments, they're going to find a way to blow this with a mixed field goal or extra point. Both of those worlds collide on Sunday in a desperation game. So you've got teams that sponsor suspense and fluky end-of-games results on top of 0-2 versus 0-2 desperation. Those are the stakes. All right, be back tomorrow. Talk to you guys and gals. Josh Fry. I'm out for the day. Skol, baby.